It's a Red Friday edition of the Intangibles. That's right. We are here on Friday today instead of Monday. Christian, this is going to be our new day. We made this change so you can hear us now every Friday, partially to accommodate schedules a little bit better, and partially just so we had a podcast leading up to the game, so that way you can kick off your Red Friday and into the weekend with just a little bit more Chiefs content, which we all need.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually love this time slot a little bit better than our last one. The Monday episodes were nice, but yeah, kicking it off Red Friday with a podcast. Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, and I think it's going to give us a little bit better opportunity too to kind of look back and also look ahead with the podcast being on Monday with so many of the Chiefs games being played on Sunday. It's really just kind of a glorified post game at that point, and you can listen to our post game podcast, which is always happening right after the game on the Arrowhead Addict channel and on the podcast network. So be sure to check all that out. But Christian, how you doing today? How you feeling?
Overwhelmed a little bit, man. It's been a busy day for me. I've got football practice right after school. I'm a full-time teacher as well. So like teaching day, I'm planning for a coaching convention as well. So like my weekend is packed, man.
Nice. How's the team doing? How are you guys?
3-0.
3-0.
3-0. Hoping for another win.
Just like the Chiefs will be, hopefully, after this game in Atlanta. I'm doing pretty well too. We've got a big Nebraska game. Full disclosure, we're recording this Wednesday evening, so if some major Chiefs news happens between now and Friday, we're going to be a little bit behind the eight ball here. So just keep that in mind. But on Friday, my Cornhuskers are playing Illinois, ranked game, two ranked teams. It's the biggest test for them yet. Pretty excited. You know what? I need to ask you this. Since you're a Chiefs fan and not a Nebraska fan, and I am a Nebraska fan, so I'm biased. Where do you sit on the Dylan Raiola cosplay situation?
Ooh, I'm not familiar. Also, I'm not familiar that you were a Cornhuskers fan, dude. When did that come about?
This has come about the last couple of years. I've got a lot of friends because I went to school like 15 minutes from Nebraska up in Maryville, and 15 minutes is a little hyperbolic, but not much. And I got a bunch of Cornhusker fans, and I didn't really have a college allegiance here locally. And it was just a good way to get out of the toxic circle of KU, K-State, all that jazz here locally. Mm-hmm. So, and then it just kind of like timed out the last couple of years that Nebraska started getting good. Jumped on when Matt Rule got on. But Dylan Raiola, Patrick Mahomes, you know the story?
Oh, okay. Yes. No, I wasn't familiar with his name. I just know him from like all of the X content that I consume on the daily basis of like, here's a Patrick Mahomes clone type of thing. But no, I'm familiar now.
Okay. Tell me, I don't know if we've talked about it here on the podcast before. How do you feel about Dylan Raiola, who is the quarterback of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and all the content that's been made around him, looking, acting, dressing like Patrick Mahomes? Are you in? Are you out? Do you think it's weird? Do you think it's cool? How do you feel about it?
Hey, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. And if I'm Patrick Mahomes, that's how I take it, man. I think it's a little cheesy, but I don't know how much of that he's putting on just to like, make it a conversation piece, get his name out there, and how much of it is like genuinely, oh, I'm trying to be Patrick Mahomes 2.0.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about it because I feel like Chiefs fans are very, very split on it. There's some people who flat out don't like it, like calling them like Patrick Apartments instead of Mahomes, okay. And like giving them a really hard time and like, this has to stop. This is messed up. This dude needs help, that sort of thing. And then there's the other side of the spectrum where you've got like me, who's a Nebraska fan, who's just like all for it. It just like weaves both my fandoms into it.
Yeah, that's perfect for you, dog. You get two Patrick Mahomes.
I know. I get to watch him twice a week. It's a blessing. Here's my thing about it. I agree that it is a little strange that how much he is doing it, because I don't know if you've seen his like pregame routine, it matches everything. He plays like him. He trains with Bobby Stroop, who is Patrick Mahomes' trainer. But I will say this: in the era of name, image, and likeness, more people know Dylan Raiola's name than they ever would have if he had not done this. And I think that this is probably a part of it, that like, oh, this is the Patrick Mahomes lookalike. It's also should be noted that like his dad, Dominic Raiola, was a defensive lineman for the Detroit Lions, not lineman. And his godfather is Matt Stafford. So like the sidearm stuff, it's more than just Patrick Mahomes. This is a guy with NFL pedigree. And also like Dylan Raiola, he's not some nobody. He was a 5-star recruit. He committed to Georgia. He decommitted to Georgia once Carson Beck ended up going after Stetson Bennett left, and then transferred to Nebraska. And also the dude can ball. Like I don't know if you caught the Colorado game or the big game Friday against Illinois. Like he can play. He's good. He's a true freshman. Like this we'll be talking about him in a couple of years in the draft. Not for the Chiefs, although if that could ever happen, that he'd just like sit behind Mahomes and then just like,
Oh, dude, that
don't
would be
tempt
so
me.
awesome.
Okay, but yeah, I don't know. I just think as Chiefs fans, we shouldn't be against Dylan Raiola. Like, I think you should
Oh
support him. I
no,
think
no,
you should
not
be.
at all.
I, if you want to say it's a little weird, I'll agree with you. It is a little weird. He needs to develop his own brand, but I don't think that you should hate this guy. I don't think that it's like he's stealing Mahomes' clout. He has enough, right? This furthers the Mahomes agenda. So let's all be on board. Okay, in rant. Let's real quick before we get into the show. I need to tell you guys about our good friend Underdog. It is the greatest time of year again. Football is back, and it's here to stay till February. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. Win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player stats. That's it. I love Underdog because it makes any game so much better. So if there's a crappy Thursday night football game on, I just fire up that Underdog app and I make that game way more interesting, which I'm telling you, we've had a couple of good primetime games here locally. The bad ones, they're coming soon, like Patriots Jets tomorrow. Making on a pick on Underdog is straightforward and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple to use mobile app or underdogfantasy.com and sign up with your promo code Arrowhead Addict. That's all one word, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em. Entry plus up to $1,000 and bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Arrowhead Addict, all one word, to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. You must be 18 years or older to play, 21 in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 in Alabama, and New England, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, valid in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.npcgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-888-78-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. Okay, Christian. So we're in this new slot where we're going to look back a little bit and we're also going to look ahead a little bit. So this was kind of a unique game where the Chiefs, they're 2-0. I mean, if you had told me at the beginning of the year that the Chiefs started 2-0, I would have been like, it's over for the league. It's over. But it was a weird win where it almost felt like it was a loss because it was so tight. It was so close. It almost felt like it was over so many times. And there's a lot of things to be concerned about. So today, we're going to break out the level of concern meter. Scale of 1 to 10. How concerned are we about these things long term? Keep in mind, we're talking Super Bowls here, not week 3, right? So we're talking about long-term season. So the first one is for you. Do the Chiefs have a left tackle they can win a Super Bowl with on the roster? Scale of 1 to 10, how worried are
you? How worried am I that they don't? Ooh, probably a 7. I mean, I think they can win a Super Bowl with just about anybody, unless we're facing the Bucs and prime Tom Brady or old Tom Brady. But like, dude, it was just such a weird situation this year where we have like a really, really developmental tackle in Kingsley Suamataia, and then we have Wanya Morris as the backup, who's like still a very developmental left tackle prospect who, like, even though he's had a year with the team, it's not like, I don't know, he's not Tyron Smith going out there. So I'm a little worried, but I also think it's Patrick Mahomes. Like, we can probably, if we have 4 other fantastic linemen, is it really, that big a deal?
Well, here's where I think your level of panic, like obviously 10 being the higher panic, just to be clear. I think your level of panic doesn't quite match what you're saying, though, because you say it's 7. That sounds pretty panicky, but it sounds like you've got some quiet confidence here in their ability to right the ship. Is it more that you just think Mahomes and the offense can overcome this, or is it you believe in Kingsley?
Well, you have to understand that I'm a Chiefs fan and I'm trying to cope with the situation that we have a left tackle that's, allowing an insane pressure rate and is very, very, I don't know how much of you guys watched him against Hendricks off the edge. Dude, he was, or Trey Hendrickson, excuse me. Man, we jumped to 3 players there, man. Yeah, Trey Hendrickson, where it's like he's getting bullied and he's beating with the swim, which was like Kingsley's red flag, if you could call it that, coming out of college. It's like, if you hit him with the swim, you're going to beat him. I understand that that's like a top level edge rusher, and that's not going to be what he's facing every other week. But it's like, dude, in the playoffs, you play against the best players, the best teams, right? So the competition's only going to get steeper. And if he doesn't hit that stride at some point during the season, like this could be a major problem.
I will match you at a 7. I don't want to go further for 2 reasons. One, I would like to see what this, to me so far, the Chiefs have treated Kingsley like they would Eric Fisher or some of the other left tackles that they've had that are experienced veterans. They pull him out of preseason after like 8 snaps in week 1 and 2. Like he gets treated the same way that Joe Tooney and Creed Humphrey do. Then these first couple weeks of the offense, I've looked at the all 22. They're giving him some spacing help with some tight ends sometimes, but that's not unusual to have someone who's an H or a Y lined up on the line anyways. But they at some point eventually started trying to chip with Pacheco and with P. Ryan in this game. And it honestly did not look like they were on the same page with chipping. Like they hadn't done it. Basically, Suamataia wasn't getting the help that he needed from the chip because he wasn't shading to the right shoulder. The players weren't coming through, and they were basically on the same page, him and the running backs. I would like to see what a week looks like where we've got the Andy Reid, we're game planning around the fact that we have a left tackle that needs help. Because you brought this up, everyone now knows that Suamataia can be had. Everyone's going to look at that Trey Hendrickson film and start there when it comes to the pass rush plan for the Chiefs. And every great pass rusher, just like Chris Jones does, is going to line up over there. So Matthew Judon this week against the Falcons, a guy who's been a great pass rusher in this league, guess where he's going to be lining up? And guess what? The following week, it's Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. And then they get to see Max Crosby twice a week. And oh, by the way, they play Myles Garrett and TJ Watt this year. So like the blows will keep coming for Suamataia. So the Chiefs have to start actively game planning around this more than they have. Now, the only reason why I'm not at a higher level, because I don't think that Wanya Morris brings much more. I think Suamataia, at one point, he started getting inside his own head, and it just all went out the window there, and technique really went away. Where I still have a level of optimism is the guy who just started for them and won a Super Bowl is still sitting out there on the street. And I think that that's the break glass in case of emergency. I don't know when they're going to pull it, but if you told me it doesn't go well and then they sign him right before the bye week and give him a week or 2 to get his body ready to go and he's in there, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't want that to be the case because I would like him to be an all-pro as a rookie. I don't think that's something that's going to be happening anytime soon. But this is probably the thing I'm the most concerned with. It's just because you use the term 4 other fantastic offensive linemen. I think they've got 3. And then there's Jawante Taylor, who I think at his best is an average tackle. So far, so good with the penalties this year, but they will rear their head. So, I would say a 7 for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd say that's about right. My level of concern also jumps a little bit because we lost Pacheco. And I know it's not a huge deal. Like, we have these running backs that can come up, and if you're an Andy Reid running back, you know how to block at least a little bit. But that gives me a little bit of pause, too, where it's like, yeah, okay, we've seen Carson Steele, and yeah, he's a bucking Bronco. He's a bull in a china shop, and he'll get you 3 yards when he gets hit. But it's like, can he help out Kingsley? Can he help out Wanya Morris? Like, that's a question we haven't had answered yet.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to the next one. Obviously, Isaiah Pacheco. Shout out to him for basically breaking the same part of his ankle that I broke, about a year ago, or not a year ago, about 6 months ago. So if you would like tips, Pacheco, on how to take care of a family of 4 on a scooter, I'm your guy. But level of concern with the Chiefs running back room, scale of 1 to 10.
6. And I'll say it's a little bit less than the left tackle room only because I like what we have in Carson Steele, and P. Ryan has not been awful when he's been on the field. Like, he's not, Jet McKinnick in his prime, at least for the Chiefs at least, but like, he's still a serviceable guy. We got Kareem Hunt back on the roster, even though he's practice squad. And who's that guy we just signed? Ingram? He moved up.
Ingram was moved up from the practice squad, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some depth, there's some familiarity with the room. Like, the Chiefs don't really run the ball anyway, right? I mean, it's 2024. We saw it a little bit more last year.
They were very committed to running the ball against the Bengals. Here, it's weird because I'm kind of like flip-flopped a view from the last one. I'm actually going to say a 4, so my level of concern is less, but here are my thoughts on it. I I just wish that the Chiefs no longer have a threat that I think scares you. Pacheco actually scares you at the running back position because he can break off 10, 15, 20-yard chunks. He's really good at that like 5 to 8 yard rush, and he runs in
Hmm.
such a way that if you don't get hands on him and bring him down to the ground, he's going to get that extra yardage. P. Ryan, honestly, is a pass protection upgrade over what they had last year on the roster. So that part should make you feel better. He's not been on the field a lot. I don't know if he's integrating into the offense more, or maybe they just haven't loved what they've seen. Maybe the Broncos moved off of him for a reason that he's past his prime. But and then like obviously there's Carson Steele. Also like with Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, and Kareem Hunt, the Chiefs have to have like one of the heaviest running back rooms in the NFL right now, which is part of this too. Like the Chiefs' offense has been predicated on speed. We all made those tweets in April and June and May of like Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. Oh, look at how fast their offense is. Rashee Rice and Isaiah Pacheco is one of those guys. They lose a home run threat there. I don't think that any of the Chiefs running back. I saw on Twitter that Kareem Hunt hasn't hit over 15 miles an hour on next gen stats in like 2 years. So whatever you're
Hmm.
expecting to get from Kareem Hunt, it's probably coming in the red zone and then maybe in the pass game some. At that point, like I think when we're talking about Kareem Hunt, real quick, as an offensive player, like I think you plan on Pacheco coming back around Thanksgiving, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. You've got P. Ryan. I think his role is pretty cemented. That's why McKinnon's not back. It's because P. Ryan's role is very defined and very similar to McKinnon's. And then like maybe Kareem Hunt, if he comes in and looks decent, might eat into Carson Steele's snaps. But Carson Steele is here long term. Like, he's a rookie. So they're not going to just give up on him. So Kareem Hunt, he's just Mr. Right now, not Mr. Right. But my level of concern is just lower because it's running back. And like you said, like the Chiefs, they've gotten through this. They went through a stretch last year where they were basically relying on Jerick McKinnon, who wasn't healthy, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I think just the biggest thing is that I would like to see is like if they're not going to be able to lean on the run game for these explosive plays, which they've kind of done these first two games, I would really like to see P. Ryan integrate into the passing game more. That's the best the offense has looked over the years is when they had Kareem Hunt up and going in 2018 as a factor in the passing game, when they had Damian Williams and Jerick McKinnon up and going in the passing game. Pacheco has gotten better there, but he's never been the threat that some of those other guys would. So maybe they can unlock part of the offense like that with P. Ryan.
Oh yeah, and I like what you said about the Chiefs offense being predicated on that speed. Like, and that again goes into our next one here with Xavier Worthy. But like, man, do you think that there's a way that we can utilize some of those guys like that, like Xavier Worthy or Rashee Rice in the backfield, and like maybe use them on some of those stretch plays where we can get them around, like that GH counter we saw week 1?
Well, I mean, they use Kadarius Toney on some of those, right? It's like those delayed handoffs when they're in the gun and basically Mahomes like drops back and then hands the ball to him. It's kind of like a delayed draw. I think McCole Hardman could be a person there. I don't know if I want Xavier Worthy to not be in between the hashes as much as possible, especially around defensive linemen, right? Just because of the size.
Yeah.
But McCole Hardman, like he's not as valuable to this roster, but yeah, I don't think that they have that as much as they used to, and that could have been a spot that they could have used Kadarius Toney. Not that I'm like bleeding heart over Toney not being on the roster, but that could have been maybe 2 or 3 plays we're talking here that could have been an impact for him. But maybe this year, as I write a weekly mock draft for the website, you all won't come to my house and try to with pitchforks and torches if I put a 4th-round running back in the mock draft, okay? Because like it's a problem. The Chiefs waited way too long to address this. They had Pacheco, who's a good player. They waited for the Broncos to cut a guy that they tried to trade and couldn't, and then a UDFA who has a pet alligator who went to Ball State and UCLA and is actually kind of a fullback convert. That's the running back room right now. And then, oh, by the way, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like the mental health situation with him. Like, I get that it's a not invaluable position, but we can invest a day 3 pick in running back. I promise it doesn't have to be 7th round only. Pacheco is the exception, not the rule. So please stop trying to get mad at me if I like mock a 4th round running back.
Well, and you're talking about a guy like Trey Benson, who's like probably like a 4-2 guy, 4-3 guy, and can make insane plays. Give us that home run hit that we were just talking about.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't have to be the next level of the offense. It just has to be a developmental back. Like, the Bengals were just in town. Chase Brown was a guy who's taken around in that area and is one of the fastest ball carriers in the NFL last year. That'd be really nice to have behind us. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm really glad we have Jaden Hicks and some of the other players are taking around that same area. But those are type of players. It does matter, especially whenever Pacheco quite honestly, he's probably a top 3 or 4 most important player on this offense right now, as far as skill players go. So, all right, let's move on. Xavier Worthy without Hollywood Brown. So Brown goes down. That's basically going to be almost all the regular season, it sounds like, and could bleed into the postseason. How do we feel about Xavier Worthy's role in this offense now that Hollywood Brown is not here? Scale of 1 to 10.
Well, I mean, you kind of based that off your expectations, right? Like, what did we really expect Xavier Worthy to be? Wide receiver, first round. I mean, I had really high hopes for him. I had about 1,000 yards. And once Hollywood Brown went down, my expectation kind of went up that he would receive more of those reps. And he was getting open really often, really early in those first 2 games. It's just this, or the first game, it's the second one that kind of slowed everything down with that. If I had to guess, and I haven't looked at the actual sheet, I would say that he was on the field for about 50% of the snaps, maybe a little less, maybe a little bit more. Like, I don't know if we're going to see a huge jump from Worthy this season, or if he's going to be like that impact player that we knew Hollywood Brown could be. But like, I'm not concerned about it at all. I'm like maybe a 3, like a 2 or a 3 on this, where it's like, yeah, I never really expected him to be Hollywood Brown when he's not here. Like, yeah, he can do part of it. That's what Hollywood Brown is. It's like he's a bunch of little pieces of what you want a really good receiver to be. Xavier Worthy can do some of that. He's not going to do all of it.
I have been a little concerned about Xavier Worthy's ability to win beyond, like, right now, what we have seen so far. It is week 2, and keep in mind, like, Rashee Rice last year, week 2 to week 12 or 13 or 14, completely different player, role, scheme, etc. Right now, Xavier Worthy is just souped up McCole Hardman so far, where it's just been manufactured touches for him. And then, like, he was targeted on a go route, right? Like, it's basically been gadget stuff, and then a blown coverage against the Ravens, which, by the way, we said it last time, we'll say it again. It's a lot easier to blow a coverage when a guy's one of the fastest guys in the NFL. Now, teams are respecting him down the field, and I think maybe McCole Hardman commanded that respect, but also Tyreek Hill was on the field those first years with McCole Hardman, so it's hard to tell. But Xavier Worthy does command respect over the middle of the field. That is definitive. And his role on the offense, it does matter. However, as a receiver, I would like to see him start winning more as a route runner, right? Right now, we have seen very few examples of him running a route, getting open, particularly in the middle of the field, which is a place he's going to struggle, period. And, winning, like, for instance, and I know he's a different player, but Tyreek Hill's speed helped him win a lot in the red zone. Like, he had a surprising amount of red zone touchdowns because that short area quickness, it matters down there when there's less space. So for Xavier Worthy, I'm going to say a 4 level of concern because it's early. But if this is what it looks like at the end of the year, then yeah, I'm going to be concerned because route running was a big part of what made him a good player. The people were telling on themselves during the draft whenever they said, like, oh, Xavier Worthy, just a fast guy who runs straight and runs fast. Like, he's a quality route runner. He tracks the ball well. There are limitations, but the interception against Cam Taylor against the Bengals, that's like a great example of where you don't want Xavier Worthy to be. One-on-one, on the outside, and press coverage against a good corner. And, like, he doesn't even go up and go for the ball. Like, Andy Reid talked about that, like, hey, he needs to basically play defensive back there and try to fight for the ball. Like, that's an area that he's not going to win very often. We saw Rashee Rice win in that exact way later. My concern with this is just, like, how does he develop? How does he grow? And then you're one injury away, right? Like, how do we feel about this wide receiver room without Xavier Worthy? And it's Rashee Rice, whatever Juju Smith-Schuster is, McCole Hardman, Sky Moore, and Justin Watson compared to last year. I mean, it might be worse than last year because at least MVS.
Oh, no.
You don't think so?
No. Well,
okay, let's do the thing real quick. All right.
Okay.
2024 Rashee Rice versus 2023 Rashee Rice. You're going to take 24 Rashee Rice, right?
Yeah, obviously.
You're better,
yes.
As long as he's not suspended. Are you going to take this year Justin Watson or last year Justin Watson? We'll just call it a push.
I think it's a toss-up. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to take Juju Smith-Schuster or Richie James?
I mean, we haven't really seen a lot of Juju Smith-Schuster, but I think that his impact is potentially better than Richie James.
Okay. Well, Sky Moore for Sky Moore. We'll call it a push.
Yeah, push.
McCole Hardman for McCole Hardman, and then you add MVS in there. Like, I don't know, man. Like,
Well,
Go
okay,
back and
but
watch
you
the.
have to put Xavier Worthy and MVS in the same category then.
But what I'm saying though is like they're a 165-pound receiver injury away from being worse than last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if Xavier Worthy gets hurt. I thought you were talking about Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, and like, hey, I will say this: the role and stuff for MVS was so defined in what he did that like one thing I think the offense is struggling with a little bit right now is the fact that they have like three guys who are move around guys. Kelce's kind of that way. Like I tweeted out today, Travis Kelce was put in motion on like over half of his snaps in this game. He's a guy that they move around to try to game plan around to get him to win in ways. Well, guess what? Rashee Rice is kind of that way a little bit too, right? You saw a lot of that motion in week one against the Ravens. And guess what? Xavier Worthy kind of needs to be one of those guys too. So that's one thing that I think that they have to work on is like you could stick MVS at the X and he would just go and touch the goalpost and come back. And he sucked at it, but hey, at least it was like a defined role and he was a pretty good run blocker and then just like had a clutch gene apparently for the playoffs. But I'll put a 4 for now, but I want to start seeing him win as a route runner. And hopefully they're continuing to grow his role there. And I would like to see him win in some of those broken down plays. We haven't seen a ton of it, but Mahomes goes straight for Kelce in those situations or Rashee Rice. So finding those soft spots in zone, that's something that he's going to have to get better at too. Okay, last level of concern, Chiefs defense against tight ends. They are getting absolutely destroyed by tight ends. What's your level of concern for this particular role for the defense?
I'll say it like this. If you have Kyle Pitts in your fantasy league and he's not starting this week, promote him to starter. If you have to push him to flex, push him to flex. That dude is going to feast. We just got beat up by Mike Gesicki.
Whoa. You cannot be endorsing Kyle Pitts in fantasy.
I absolutely can.
Dead to me. He's dead to me. Don't even talk to me about Kyle Pitts in fantasy.
Hey, listen, I wasn't going to draft him as high this year, but he just happened to fall to me in like the 5th or 6th round of my fantasy draft. And I'm like, well, I don't have a tight end yet. I mean, Kincaid's off the board. Who am I going to pick up? Yeah, of course it's going to be Kyle Pitts. Like, and I don't know if you watched, did you end up watching the Eagles game with against the Falcons? Dude, he had that MVS clutch gene that we were just talking about. He was like on that final drive. It was like, throw one to Kyle Pitts, catch it on the outside. Like, he only had 3 receptions, so it's not like he went all-star on him. But, like, dude, he was one of the numbers that they called when stuff started to hit the fan and they needed a first down. Like, Trey McDuffie... Go ahead.
He's no Ray McLeod. Ray McLeod hive.
Oh, no.
Was alive and well. He eating in that offense for some reason.
Yeah, some with 2 other first-round draft picks at weapons. 3 other. My mistake. No, yeah, like I'm extremely worried about the Chiefs defense against tight ends. And that's kind of always been something that they've struggled about. But like in particular with this game that we're about to play, where it's like, hey, our linebackers and our safeties are going to have to be in coverage because we're going to want to try to get Kirk Cousins pressured. So we're going to have to be sending blitzes. That means they got to be in man or they got to match up well against those guys. I do not trust them at all to be able to hold up against Kyle Pitts or any other tight end that we're going to be facing. They just, I don't know what it is, if it's about the technique that they're being taught. I would assume that it's not, but they just seem like, especially the linebackers, they look outmatched, out athletic every single play. And it's difficult to put on, what their responsibilities are. We've talked about Nick Bolton ad nauseum, and what he brings to the table and what he doesn't. Like Nick Bolton on Kyle Pitts it can't happen. It can't happen. And maybe the Chiefs defense is good enough to make up for those types of things, and they have been the past 2 games. But like this is a huge issue. I would say probably like a 9 is where I would be with that.
So one thing that I think I've come to a realization is that I think the Chiefs miss Willie Gay a little bit more than we might have anticipated. I don't think Willie Gay was a world beater. I don't think that this was a Fred Warner cover back or anything like that. But what I do think that he offered was you were deeper in a way that allowed you to be more flexible, where you can ask Willie Gay to do certain things. You can ask Drew Tranquill to do certain things. You can ask Nick Bolton to do certain things, and you can ask Leo Chenal to do certain things, right? They were all multiple. So when those guys were on the field, you could have them doing variable things. Whereas right now, like Drew Tranquill's role, it's a lot more defined because they don't have that depth. They're really only playing 3 linebackers, whereas last year they played 4 more consistently. And maybe just a freshness thing. Like we saw Drew Tranquill miss some kind of uncharacteristic tackles. Maybe it's just like they're not getting rotated in as much. Now, my level of concern with this, like we're going to be very opposite. I'm at a 3 right now. Here's why. I
Whoa, okay. Go
So
ahead.
first off, like Steve Spagnuolo defenses, besides last year where like it was a historically good defense, they tend to start off slow. They tend to get better as the time goes on. Spagnuolo is good at game planning and finding things that they can to do to improve things. Plus, I feel like there's a player like one thing a couple years ago, whenever it was Daniel Sorensen and Tyrann Mathieu, like blowing all these coverages, there was nobody else on the roster that you felt could bring any more to the situation. Whereas right now, I feel like there's a player, Jaden Hicks, that they can start to use in this role who is going to match up physically with tight ends and coverage wise with tight ends as a safety better than some of these players. So I feel like if they can start working him in, there's a chance for that position to improve. There's only one team that really scares me with this, and that's the Bills. Here's why. The Bills have two pretty good pass catching tight ends with Kincaid and Knox who can hurt you, especially Kincaid, who's really good with Yak. Then they're constantly running out of these heavy personnels and jumbo packages where they've got six offensive linemen on the field and you've got a running back with Cook who can hurt you. Josh Allen is a freaking moose. It can hurt you running the ball. And then, oh, by the way, he's got a freaking cannon for an arm and can just hurt you enough with players like Shakir or some of the other receivers that they've added. I know that they don't have Diggs anymore, but that gets really hard. So my level of concern is low right now because I do think that they have answers on the roster, and I believe in Spagnuolo to be able to fix it.
Yeah, okay, okay. Well, I understand where you're coming from. And when we look at the Chiefs defense, like them against the run, they've actually been not too bad this year.
Yeah, and
Like,
that surprised me. Like it was a big concern for me. They'll get a nice test this week with Bijan, but they gave up a ton of rushing yards to the Ravens, but that was all to Lamar Jackson playing hero ball, scrambling rather than design run plays. They've really held the running back down pretty well so far.
oh yeah, and not that the Ravens have been some kind of world beater this year, but like we expected Derrick Henry to feast on our defense from the running back spot, and he didn't. And again, Lamar Jackson was the guy who beat us up there, but he does that every time we play him. It doesn't matter who we have back there, a linebacker. So,
He
yeah,
does that,
dude,
but he does not win. He does not win.
no,
He's one
never
Clyde
wins.
Edwards aware a layer random fumble away from being 0-6 against Patrick Mahomes. So there's that. Okay, so we are going to do a new segment. So since we don't get to go live with you guys, which was honestly part of the most fun part of the show, we're going to do a new way to kind of engage some of you guys and get some of your fan interaction in with the show. We're not going to do this all the time, but today we're going to be doing a new segment called Takes on Takes. So what this is going to be, you guys have submitted some of your takes to the Arrowhead Addict Twitter page, and we're going to be reading over your guys' responses to what is your Chiefs hot take. And then we're going to react to your take, whether we agree, whether we disagree. It's a great way also to get a pulse of the fandom. Like, what are the things I'm reading the most? Well, how do people feel about this? So we're going to be reading and reacting to these. So first take comes from @SimplyRGZ Take. We're going to lose to Carolina. It's the yearly customary WTF how game. I can just see it clear as day. So, Christian, how do you feel about this take?
I hope to God not, man. Like, I understand
I put this on here because I actually think it might be a little bit more relevant now. Bryce Young gets benched. Andy Dalton can be like that. That offense is not without talent. The offensive line's much better than it was last year. Bryce Young literally is the worst quarterback in the league, and now they just have Andy Dalton. Right? I don't think this is going to happen, but if we're gonna. Let's agree. The Chiefs are dropping a game that they have no business dropping this year, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Let's look at the schedule real quick. Let's do the thing. What game do you think that they're going to randomly drop this year? Like, what's the stinker? Hold on.
What's
Let's
the
pull up the
stinker?
schedule. Let me pull the schedule here.
Okay, all right.
Let's see here. Okay, so at Falcons,
No.
at Chargers,
Yes, probably. We always have that one early season loss that just baffles us as Chiefs fans.
I could see it, right? All the Jim Harbaugh narratives. Oh, who has it better than us? Nobody. Saints on Monday Night Football all of a sudden looks spicy.
Yeah,
right?
yes, somehow, yeah.
After the bye, 49ers, that's a game that if you lose, no one's going to be upset about. You get the Raiders, the Buck. To me, one of the games is it's either going to be the Bucks, the Saints, or I don't know. I could see like the Steelers, like the Christmas Day game again, right?
Yeah.
The rest of the games are all either divisional, like Chiefs, Chargers, Texans are in there, but Texans another team, and then maybe the Steelers. Like I could see the Steelers winning some like 19-13 game where it's just like mucked up and the pass rush just is getting home so much on Mahomes or something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Yeah, Steelers have always kind of been like a team. I don't know, just as a historical Chiefs fan that I really dislike playing because they're always somehow just a little bit better than us, no matter how hard we
God,
play.
the Chiefs could not get past the Steelers in like the early 2010s for sure.
No, dude. No, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's going to be an NFC team. I
Okay,
think if
so
you were going to put a bet down, probably NFC team.
well, Andy Reid puts up the playbook for the NFC teams too, like those ones that he knows he's not seeing it. Like, forget it, he's
Oh
not
yeah.
running anything. So, okay, so I think we're out on this. All right, this is from half the fun is reading the usernames. Honestly, at John Bafamba, Pacheco was great, but Carson Steele is going to take over the league at running back starting next week.
Ooh. Hell yeah, dude. John, but we're on the same wavelength, man. As much as I'd like for that to be true, like I mean, I doubt it, right? That's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I just Carson Steele, like I don't know what's another running back that is quote unquote taking over the league that runs and plays with the same skill set as Carson Steele right now.
Right now, oh,
Yeah,
I
I don't
nobody,
I
but
don't think there's
Marshawn
anyone.
Lynch historically,
Yeah,
he's
but
the
I mean
white
even
Marshawn Lynch.
put that on a graphic, please, Richard.
Yeah, put it up,
I
Arrowhead
put
Addict.
it on
Let's
the
go.
graphic with the AI image of Carson Steele riding the alligator. Have you seen that on Twitter? Put it,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
put it
dude.
over that. White Marshawn Lynch. No, I don't think it's quite there. To me, he's not explosive enough. I think he can be a solid back, take over the league. I'm out. But I think the aesthetic, the way it looks, the alligator, all that stuff. I do think that he could get some buzz, like fantasy football, right? And he's got a nice limelight here on Sunday Night Football coming up against the Falcons. So, do I think he'll be like a fan favorite, kind of a folk tale? That's possible. Take over the league. I don't know. I don't foresee people like, you know, Carson Steele's my untouchable fantasy guy, but we shall see. Okay, this one surprised me. I saw it a couple of times. I'm pretty passionate about this topic, so we'll see. At Squid_Tuttle. Again, the name's great. Take. Chiefs need to bring Eric Bieniemy back.
You go first. I feel like you know what I'm going to say.
I I personally do not understand this constant infatuation with the notion that Eric Bieniemy was the reason why the Chiefs offense was good. It's just me. I think the Chiefs offense is good because they have a Hall of Fame head coach who's won 3 Super Bowls, one of the greatest offensive minds to ever play. They have a Hall of Fame quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. They have a Hall of Fame tight end and have a really great roster. And just like all the other OCs that left Kansas City to become head coaches or be OCs other places, they all coming back. Like, does anyone think that we're not going to see Doug Peterson, future Chiefs assistant here soon with the way things are going in Jacksonville? Clearly, Andy Reid is the juice to this. Jim Harbaugh or John Harbaugh, whichever Harbaugh brothers in Baltimore, is like the Chiefs assistant that's had the most success. Say Doug Peterson winning one of the most random Super Bowls ever. I don't know why we think that this was this narrative that was created last year where, he held all the players accountable and Matt Nagy doesn't do that. And people didn't like Matt Nagy in Chicago. And that's why the Chiefs offense sucked. You know why the Chiefs offense sucked last year? Because their players sucked and they weren't good. And they had wide receivers actively sabotaging the game. That's why the Chiefs already have more explosive plays in the first 2 weeks than they had through the first 6 weeks last year. Patrick Mahomes has already thrown a longer touchdown this year than he did all of last year. The Chiefs offense is better because it has better players. Eric Bieniemy got passed on by the league numerous times and then had an opportunity to stay with a new coaching regime that's a defensive coach, right? They brought in a defensive coach in Washington and they could have just kept a, administrative OC to run the offense while he took care of the defense. Nope, they passed on him for Cliff Kingsbury, who I don't know a single person who has a good thing to say about Cliff Kingsbury, especially except for Patrick Mahomes. So then he gets passed over by all those, and then all these head coaching opportunities get passed over in college football, and he's an OC of a struggling program that had their head coach go leave to be the OC at Ohio State. So maybe he's the head coach in Colorado when Dion bails and follows his son to the NFL next year because he's a Colorado guy. I don't know. But how anyone can look at Eric Bieniemy and his track record and what he's done post Andy Reid and be like, you know what? That's what we need back. I don't get it. And I promise this has nothing to do with how anyone looks in the situation, okay? This isn't a complexion thing. This isn't an anything. It's just like use your brain thing.
Okay, I'll use my brain here real quick. One word, accountability. Eric Bieniemy is the one chewing them out when they're dropping the ball on the ground during practice. We saw a huge influx of drop passes and fumbles in the year after he left, and we have bootleg Nat Hackett as our offensive coordinator right now. Okay, he is not. I don't know what anybody saw in him as a head coach and how he could immediately come back and be an OC, but like, dude, Matt Nagy is just not him. He's just not him. And I don't know if he ever will be, but I mean, come on, man. You have to at least admit that Matt Nagy is not what everybody has him hype up to be as like the Andy Reid heir apparent.
So I do not have a strong Matt Nagy opinion, right? Like, we'll get to Matt Nagy in the years that come, whenever Andy Reid leaves this team and they look for the replacement. I don't really have a thought. Like, again, my
You don't
argument
have a
isn't that
thought? You don't have anything on the Bears?
My argument is not that Matt Nagy is the reason why this offense is good. My argument is it wasn't Eric Bieniemy and it's not Matt Nagy and it wasn't Mike Kafka and it wasn't Doug Peterson. It's none of those people. It's Andy Reid and it's Patrick Mahomes. That's why this offense is good. And Eric Bieniemy coming back and this like narrative that we created about accountability. Guess what? That fit a narrative because Kadarius Toney wasn't good, because Sky Moore wasn't good, because MVS wasn't good. What are you going to do this year when they go out, or if they go out and be one of the top offenses in the NFL? Did Matt Nagy just get better at accountability?
Oh, no. But okay, but there's a difference between them like being completely reliant on the OC and like he's adding something to the team. I don't think Matt Nagy adds anything to this team other than he's another ear, or he's another person in Pat Mahomes' ear.
I will leave it at this. Just on the Matt Nagy thing, I don't have the specific tweet in front of me because I have to dig for it. Right after the Chiefs lose the AFC Championship during the week of the Super Bowl, Jacina Anderson, who is a person, when she breaks news in the NFL, she says, I just got off the phone with Marshawn Lynch. I just got off the phone with so-and-so. She put out a very specifically worded tweet that said, Patrick Mahomes and his camp are very happy to have Matt Nagy back in the building. You go look at the Super Bowl parades, him and Nagy are like arm in arm with each other like brothers. I frankly don't know if Matt Nagy is a great offensive coordinator or will be the next head coach of the Chiefs, though I think that is the leading candidate in the building. If it makes Patrick Mahomes happy, they have to do it. And that's the way it is. Like, you keep your star quarterback happy. We don't want to see this end like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. And bringing Matt Nagy back in the building over Eric Bieniemy and this mythical narrative that he kept players accountable, never mind that Commanders players all bashed him this summer and how much they didn't like him because he wouldn't let them wear their hats backwards. A real thing, by the way. I'm okay with it, right? And that's just where I'll leave it. And then, like, hey, if you want to tune into the UCLA offense at 10 p.m. at night to watch it and see Eric Bieniemy's great work, go ahead, knock yourself out. But the NFL and a lot of college programs passed over him, so I'll leave it at that. Okay, something a little lighter.
Yeah, that got aggressive, man.
Obviously, sorry, I have no thoughts on it. Can you tell? All right, so
yeah, okay.
The Chiefs. So this take is from @Luke563. The Chiefs have to be ultra aggressive at the trade deadline. Add a starting edge, a wide receiver, or a cornerback. I'm in on this take. They will not have another chance for a three-peat. This is likely the only other time that they will ever have to be like. This is the only time that they're going to be a three-peat. And I am captain of draft picks, so I can do my mock drafts and do all this and acquire assets and keep the window open as long as possible with Patrick Mahomes. But I'm telling you, this is a once in a decade or decades opportunity. And if that means adding Keenan Allen or adding Hassan Reddick or like going over the top here, if those players make one or two plays in the playoffs like Charles Omenihu did, it'll be worth it. Because like this is the one opportunity Patrick Mahomes has right now historically to write his name in a record book that Tom Brady hasn't.
Yeah, dude, I'm so happy you're on this train because like I feel like we needed a kumbaya moment. Not only that, but like I've been on the add somebody at the trade deadline train for like 4 years now, man.
And they've been pretty they've consistently done that. They added Kadarius Toney, they brought back McCole Hardman, they brought in I can't remember the edge rusher who was with the Steelers and used to be on the Chargers. I can't remember his name, but the people who are listening to this are screaming at me right now. But they brought him in a couple of years. They've been pretty aggressive there, and I suspect they will be. But like we always kind of joke about a blockbuster. Like if there was a year to do it, like this would be it, right?
Yes,
especially with like the Rashee Rice suspension looming over this franchise next year, Hollywood Brown injury, etc. I'm very in on this. I think the Chiefs should be aggressive. All right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Last one here. This one is from @Brandon Sosna. This one I think is pretty relevant. Take Kelce is cooked. How do we feel about Travis Kelce? What his output has been? It's been 4 catches for under 40 yards in 2 games. Is Travis Kelce cooked? Or I mean, I hate using cooked because that sounds derogatory. He's way past the prime of most tight ends, and has a lot of miles on his body. So, what do we think of current version Travis Kelce?
Uh, hmm. I don't know about cook, but I would say, when you get in your car, like the tank is low, you drive really slow, like you turn the AC off, you really try to hyper mileage as much as you can, try to get to that gas station. Uh, the gas station is the postseason for Travis Kelce. And if he was going to like take it easy and, slow down a little bit, this is the time to do it. It's week 2 against the Bengals. It's week 1 against the Ravens, excuse me. Like, if there was ever going to be a time for him to do that, it's right now. And I don't know if we can judge him based on the first 2 games, especially when like the other guy who also kind of somehow has the same like position as him or the same role in the offense has 175 yards in 2 games. So, is his role being absorbed a little bit? Yeah, probably. We kind of knew that was going to happen. Is he completely cooked? No.
Yeah, I think the load management thing's very real, right? Like, I think, if he can turn on in the playoffs like he did again, like that's going to be the biggest thing. The one thing that I think like I might be on with this take a little bit is like, I'm not sure that this is a guy that you just build your game plan around. Like for the longest time, the Chiefs have been a tight end team. We used to think that Tyreek Hill
okay.
was
I thought you were talking about Travis Kelce for a second. I'm
no,
like,
no,
what are you talking about, dude?
I do mean that a little bit. That right now he is not a dynamic enough player that you build your game plan around Travis Kelce winning. We thought that this team was a Tyreek Hill offense for a long time, and then he got traded, and it's like, oh no, this was always a Travis Kelce offense. And that was something that I learned after Hill left. And Kelce is the ultimate matchup, like Nightmare, and his ability to win and be so cerebral and how he does it as a route runner, it's been huge. But I think, we talked a little bit about how the Travis Kelce was motioning so much in the offense last week. I do think at some point that this offense needs to start being a little bit more of an Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice offense with a dash of Kelce. So, you think about guys like that, like tight ends, as they've aged, some of the ones that have done really well in the NFL, like Tony Gonzalez, Jason Witten, they stopped being game plan guys that the game plan was based around and started being guys that were get open when they can and be accessories in the offense. So I think that's like what the future of Travis Kelce is. And if he can develop in that and the offense can grow in that, I think he could be extremely valuable. And maybe that is how he sticks in the league for another year or two. But I don't know. I'm concerned about him being just a build the whole offense around type of guy.
Oh, yeah. And it would be cool to kind of see him in like an elevated Justin Watson role where it's like, hey, it's 3rd down. We all know where it's going. I mean, he kind of already does that anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And, he's kind of that guy for us already. But, him being that limited role where it's like, beat this guy one time. He has had no time during the game to prep for you. Just go out there and beat him. And he just assassinates him. And we get a first down or touchdown late in the game.
Okay, so it sounds like we're out on Kelce being cooked, but we might be in on Kelce needing to change his game a little bit. Okay, so last thing here, we mentioned we're now a Red Friday show, and we've got a great pregame show with Patrick Allen. Make sure you find that on Thursdays, live on YouTube, on all your social media. But we gotta break down the game ahead a little bit. So it's a new segment. I use some alliteration because they like the alliteration. It's our Red Friday factors, Christian, and these are 3 elements to the game that we think could be key matchups. So I'm going to go first, and then we'll just kind of alternate. So a total of 6 Red Friday factors. My first one is going to be Trent McDuffie versus Drake London. Trent McDuffie is off to an incredible season, beginning of the season. He shadowed Jamar Chase on 17 of his 38 routes, 48. So that's 45% of the time he shadowed Jamar Chase, and he came away with 1 reception for 4 yards. Jamar Chase did. That is incredible. And then he also basically shut down Zay Flowers. He's been getting the L'Jarius Sneed shadow treatment, which is honestly great, and I love that for him, and I've been really impressed with what we've seen about him. That was one of my concerns. However, this matchup that's ahead of him is much bigger concern and literally a bigger challenge. Drake London is 6'3", 220 pounds, and he has been, no pun intended, a sleeping giant a little bit in this offense for a while. You mentioned that 2-minute drive. Kyle Pitts kind of came to life. That final 2-minute drive for the Falcons. Drake London was another guy who kind of started to come alive. This is going to be a much different challenge for Trent McDuffie. And maybe they use McDuffie on Mooney or Ray McLeod, the true wide receiver one in the Falcons offense. But Drake London could be challenging. Like there's going to be some times that the limitations of McDuffie's frames, the arm length, etc. Like I think it could rear its ugly head here, and they might as well figure this out because they're going to have to. Some of the other teams that they play, like Nico Collins on the Texans, like Keon Coleman on the Bills, some of the other contenders, T. Higgins if he comes back for the Bengals, they're going to have to figure that out. So I don't know. This could be a big one to see. Ray McLeod has had 7 catches for 94 yards. Darnell Mooney 4 for 103 and a touchdown so far. They can beat Williams and Watson. So it'll just be interesting to see how Steve Spagnuolo employs the corners in this game, and who do they use on Drake London?
Yeah, dude, I love that. And just to get I know we're running out of time here, but I really, really, really want to hear your perspective, even if it's just like 2 seconds. Marcus Peters, Trent McDuffie, who do you think is better for the Chiefs? Just off the dome.
Marcus Peters was certainly more dynamic, and they've both been an All-Pro. I'm pretty sure Marcus Peters won an All-Pro here.
Yes,
it's very different. I will take McDuffie's game overall because I think Marcus Peters hurt you in ways that Trent McDuffie doesn't. Like, yeah, McDuffie can sometimes struggle to get his head around or get dominated in a high point catch situation. But McDuffie in the blitz, in the run game, out in the flat and the screens, like he's just a more all around player. Marcus Peters, you lived with the ups and downs because the ups were so high. And yeah, Trent McDuffie has 0 career interceptions, and Marcus Peters was just an incredible ball hawk and can change the game like that. But, Marcus Peters also could change the game like that in a bad way when he olays a running back trying to dodge a tackle, right? Marcus Peters is one of those guys, like, we're talking about fallen Chiefs here with Kareem Hunt. I've seen let's bring Frank Clark, let's bring back, Sammy Watkins, all these guys, former Chiefs, we're all sentimental. Marcus Peters is a hard one because, like, he was an incredible player. Just the way it ended and some of the stuff he did after he left Kansas City weren't always the best. And he had some maturing to do for sure. And the Chiefs moved off of him. You can't argue with the results though. So I'll
no.
I definitely take McDuffie.
My only point is that 19 interceptions in 3 years is incredible, right?
Oh my gosh.
Insane amount of production there. But Trent McDuffie affects the game in a way that you can't really tell unless you really dig into it. And this kind of adds to mine. Mine was going to be we have to stop Kyle Pitts and on those pivotal downs. I understand he only has 7.7 yards per reception. He hasn't been incredibly effective any of the years that he's played football for the Falcons, but this is going to be, I know we say this every year. This is going to be the year that he kind of takes a step forward. And we saw that with his reliability late in that Eagles game. Trent McDuffie, I wouldn't hate if he kind of shadowed him a little bit during this game. Maybe not all the time, but we get into those pivotal downs. Maybe we throw Joshua Williams on Drake London, and he's a bigger, more physical corner that can match up. But Trent McDuffie, man, locking people down, he has done a fantastic job. You went with the stats. I really feel like we're going to struggle as a defense to stop this tight end. And anytime that we can get Drew Tranquil out there and playing in coverage, and maybe he's a little bit better than Nick Bolton. And anytime we can get Shamari Connor out on the slot, or any of these ways that we can kind of utilize our best defensive weapon right now, which kind of hands up or hands in the air, which one is better, but Chris Jones or Trent McDuffie. But utilizing Trent McDuffie on these third down, big third downs that are going to be a part of this game, I think is going to be pivotal. And I understand Drake London is a massive matchup nightmare for any cornerback, anybody. I just want to see him shuffle around a little bit and stop Kyle Pitts. Because stopping Kyle Pitts, one of my Red Friday factors, it just has to be done.
Okay, my next factor is going to be getting pressure on Kirk Cousins. When the Eagles blitz Kirk Cousins, he was 2 for 5 for 3.4 yards per attempt, negative 0.17 EPA per an attempt with a 20% success rate. He still cannot move. He looked better last week on Monday than he did the week before, where he was taking all of his snaps out of the gun or the pistol. But if you flush him from the pocket, he's not going anywhere. And he's more likely to curl up in a ball if that pocket is starting to collapse on him. They've got a pretty good interior offensive line. Chris Lindstrom's one of the best guards in the NFL, but some of those tackles can be had. They've got to heat Kirk Cousins up. And, I think, Kirk Cousins, he's had the prime time moniker around him that when the lights get bright, he doesn't. He certainly looked pretty good in that 2 minute drive, but the Eagles also literally welcomed the Falcons back into that game with some of the things that some of their execution issues. So let's heat Kirk Cousins up. The pass rush, like without blitzing, has been pretty meh so far. So maybe this is a game that it gets right. And, we saw that, Steve Spagnuolo is so good at going to the blitz at the right time. This will be a good opportunity for them to really see how well Kirk Cousins can get around and if he can evade pressure in the pocket.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And utilizing Chris Jones instead of some of these blitzes with Leo Chanel, like, I don't know how much we love him as a stand-up edge, but, like, he's absolutely a guy they could utilize here, sending him on some blitzes from the inside. They get into those bigger personnel packages. My next one, kind of along the same line, just on the opposite side. So my next one is we have to stop Matt Judon. And I understand that he wasn't an enormous factor in the last game against the Eagles, but we're not very far removed from him having a 15.5 sack season and having 42 pressures. Like, he's absolutely a guy that can change the game. And even if he's just a little bit off, putting him up against a young guy like Kingsley Suamataia or Wanya Morris, like, that's a tall task. I mean, we saw it against the Bengals. They both kind of struggled with that. Stopping him, sending chips, sending help to that left tackle. I mean, it's going to put some pressure on the rest of our linemen, but I don't really have any problems with the rest of them. I think that, they're going to line him up on that left tackle side and just blitz and blitz and blitz and blitz and bring it. And it's going to be up to them to stop it. And we got a game plan for that.
Yeah. Matthew Judon, obviously, like they're going to take a look at those Trey Hendrickson reps and do their best to emulate what they did there now. And honestly, like the pass rushers aren't that different. Like the Bengals are kind of just a bunch of guys and Trey Hendrickson, a bunch of guys and Matt Judon. So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully they kind of game plan around that a little bit more on the Chiefs offense. My last one is, we used to say this for a long time, establish the Kelce. Well, now it's established the Rice. Only 8 wide receiver have a higher yards per route run in 2024 than Rashee Rice. Those receivers are Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Mike Evans. Pretty elite company. Rice at 2.39 yards per route run is slated to face off against D. Alford. That's the slot corner for the Falcons. PFF's 80th graded cornerback with a 59% coverage grade. FTN, the site that I work for, FTN has a matchup grade. Basically, they match up every wide receiver cornerback matchup every week in the NFL to try to help you with your DFS or something like that. They gave this matchup a 73.4 grade, which is a top 5 matchup of the week, D. Alford versus Rashee Rice. So we saw the Chiefs really kind of get away from Rashee Rice in the middle of the field against the Bengals. I'm not sure why that was, if that was just like a game plan thing or a run the ball type of thing, but I'd like to see them go back to Rashee Rice and that intermediate part of the field, the slots, the slants, the mesh concepts, some of the things they did so well with them. Establish the Rice here. We know that they're not going to be able to run the ball as effectively in this game without Isaiah Pacheco. And, we're still seeing mixed results from Xavier Worthy as a route runner. So establish the Rashee Rice in this game, feed him in this game. Last game, he was not targeted very much. He had the big catch, and that was about it. Let's feed Rashee Rice.
Yeah, absolutely. And still, dude, somehow almost 200 yards receiving on the year in 2 games. It's been an absolute beast. My last one is expect a change up with the running backs. We talked about tight end coverage. We talked about us being bad against the running backs out of the when they're going out for a pass. This is a 2-headed monster. We have not. I understand. We faced Derrick Henry. He's kind of a beast. We faced Chase Brown. He was pretty good. Didn't really get run on. It's a completely different monster. I understand Kirk Cousins is not exactly a mobile quarterback, but when we're accounting for running threats from an opposing team, the Falcons have 2 of them. They're both averaging over 5 yards a carry, almost over 5.5 yards a carry. Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson, those are 2 guys that, I mean, even Jason Kelce was talking about how well they were running that outside zone against the Eagles. And this is not an Eagles team that is like bad by any means against the run. Like, I know it was a year ago, but 2023, 10th ranked in defensive rushing yards allowed. So they were stout. They weren't exactly, all time. Who can be the Chiefs defense really? But like, this is a team that was held up pretty well against the run. and they still were able to put up 100 yards rushing on him. Tyler Algier, excuse me, kind of a sneaky change of pace back that when they put him in, it's almost like the defense is like take a breath where they're like, okay, it's not Bijan. We don't have to worry about the pass. And then he averages 5.9 yards per carry on the season. We have to be able to anticipate that and make plays. Bijan Robinson as well, like he needs no introduction, but 200 yards total on the season out of 2 games. He's averaging about 75 yards rushing a game, and then another 25 receiving. It's a dual threat nightmare. We got to be able to pick it up, and whether that's spying him or whether that's anticipating that outside zone, that's what we got to do.
Yeah, and I think like Bijan, that big breakout game hasn't quite come for him yet. Like he's had several good games, but he's not had that big breakout. The Falcons would love for that to happen in prime time, right? So
yes,
the Chase fell down running backs really well, but Bijan's a very different style of back than Derrick Henry or Chase Brown and Zach Moss, right? Like he's got the explosiveness that's going to make players like Leo Chenal and Nick Bolton look limited as a linebacker. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that challenge. But make sure you tune in for the pregame, the halftime show with me, the postgame show. I'll be on postgame this week as well. And make sure to like and subscribe all of our videos here at Arrowhead Addict. It's been awesome to be with you guys on this Friday. Thank you, Christian, for joining me. Thank you, producer Richard, for being so flexible and working with our schedule in this show. And thank you all for being big fans of the show. Make sure you are locked in here at Arrowhead Addict. And as always, go Chiefs.